Good evening. I am hereby calling to order the February 12th, 2018 meeting of Bayfield Heights City Council. Lisa, may I have a roll call?
Mr. Balestria.
Present.
Mr. DeJohn.
Here.
Mrs. Finney. Mr. Mano.
Here.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Here.
Mrs. Snyder.
Here.
Mrs. Teresi.
Here.
Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. First on our agenda this evening is the approval of the minutes from the council meeting on January 22nd, 2018. I trust that everyone has had time to read them over. This time, do I have a motion to approve the minutes? Moved by Mrs. Sabetta, second
Second.
by Mr. Balestria. Are there any suggested changes, amendments, or deletions to those minutes? Seeing none, all in favor of the approval of minutes, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Nay? The minutes are approved as written. We will move to approve the minutes from our special meeting on January 31st, 2018. Do I have a motion? Moved by Mrs. Sabetta, second by
Second.
Mr. Balestria. Are there any changes to these minutes? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? These minutes have been approved. Next on our agenda is our correspondence and announcements. Does any member of council have any correspondence or announcements? Mrs. Tracy?
Yes, I've had a number of calls from the residents on Fruitland about a white Jeep that has been parked outside in the street since last Wednesday, so it's been 6 days. I did call, my husband called early on Friday, asked about the vehicle. There's no one in the vehicle, so some of the neighbors have questioned why it would be there from Wednesday to Friday. I called Friday at 8:44 p.m. And asked about the vehicle. It had no tickets, and I always thought that if it was 2 inches of snow, we had to ticket the car, or if it was left overnight. So if it was left from Wednesday to Friday, it should have had a couple tickets, and it was there, and the snowplows went around it as well, Wednesday and Friday. And I did call. I spoke to the dispatcher at 8:44 in the evening, and I said, you know, I'm only doing what we were told at the Block Watch. See it, hear it, report it. I asked if she knew who the car belonged to. She said she couldn't tell me. She said, we're doing the best we can, and she hung up. So I called her back, and I got her name because I thought she wasn't extremely helpful. But then I noticed on Saturday morning there was a ticket, and then on Sunday there was another ticket. The car is still there. So I see the chief is here. Maybe he can tell us more about the car. Okay. It's a white Jeep Cherokee. Thank you. It's been out there since last Wednesday. So I thought maybe it would be towed. It looks like the front of it is smashed. So I just wanted to report something to the people that called and asked why it was there for so long. So, okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Tracy.
Madam
There.
President.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yeah, just one thing. I got a call from a resident regarding the new Walmart lights. They installed LED lights, and they are illuminating her backyard on Parker. And she seems to be getting nowhere with the building department. They keep saying they're looking into it and talking with Walmart, but this has been going on for 4 weeks, so she's continuously calling me upset. So I'd really like to see something done as soon as possible. Those lights shouldn't be, as we know from our ordinance 1189.11, illuminating her backyard, and Walmart should be directing those lights away from those properties, if it's even possible now. But they'll need to do something, like putting shields around those lights. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chairman,
Mr. Mano.
I've had several calls from residents about the lawn damage from the Bombardier. I don't know who's been driving that thing, but boy, they tore up a ton of turf. And people have been calling and want to know, is the city going to fix all that in the spring? And I told them, as a rule, that's what we do. But that they should call the service department to find out for sure and give them their addresses. But I'll tell you what, there's a ton of turf torn up, whole sections of street. So I don't know what the problem is there. I've never seen it that bad. And either we need somebody different driving the Bombardier, or we got to do something. But you can't keep tearing up lawns and tree lawns and everything. I mean, it's continuous. It's not just a hit and miss thing. So I'd appreciate it if somebody could look into that and see what can be done. Thank you.
I know I talked to Mr. Finaro about it, because I did receive some complaints as well. And he said that they will go around once the weather changes and look at what's been done and help take care of it.
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Balestria?
No.
Anything further? Next, we're at reports of officers, starting with the mayor.
Thank you and good evening. The fire department saw 2 longtime employees retire in January. Tim Bynane's last day was on January 19th, Friday, and Gary Warner announced his retirement, and his last day was January 27th. They will be missed by their fellow firefighters and everyone at City Hall. As a result of those retirements, I was honored and privileged to swear in Mark Palumbo, who was promoted to captain, and Justin Gavora, who was promoted to lieutenant. Also, Justin Leovic was sworn in as a new firefighter paramedic. So we wish these gentlemen much success. On January 15th, I had the pleasure of helping out to cut the ribbon along with the DeSillo family at the grand opening of DeSillo's Tavern. DeSillo's is the oldest business in Mayfield Heights, opening its doors in 1926. So congratulations to the DeSillo family, and here's to your continued success. On January 17th, I attended the Hillcrest Community Advisory Council luncheon. The mission of the Community Advisory Council is to enhance communication and partnership with the communities the hospital serves. Hillcrest Hospital President Dr. Richard Parker talked about focusing patient care on a smaller scale and community health practices. The hospital remains committed to improving the health of the communities it serves through partnerships with various city departments, like our Parks and Rec and our safety forces, also the school system, and through business relations such as with the Mayfield Area Chamber of Commerce. There are healthy programs and initiatives scheduled for this year, so we will keep you posted. On Thursday, January 25th, I attended the Mayfield Road Study Group meeting to discuss the NOACA Transportation for Livable Communities project. This is a joint project with Mayfield Heights, South Euclid, and Lyndhurst to collectively discuss our shared vision and plans for the Mayfield Road corridor. The overall goal for the study is to establish a unified vision to serve as a framework for any future road work, as well as redevelopment along the corridor. The agenda items included findings from the existing conditions assessment, initial Mayfield Road corridor concepts, and ideas, and a revised overall project timeline. There is a public meeting scheduled for February 27th to learn more about the study and share your ideas for the corridor. The meeting will take place at the South Euclid Lyndhurst Library, meeting rooms B and C, and the doors will open at 5 p.m. and the presentation will start at 5:30, and all are welcome. And lastly, congratulations to the Mayfield School District on another successful Green Tie Gala. This past Saturday evening, around 300 friends of Mayfield schools came together at our own executive caterers to show their support for our special school system. Proceeds from this year's event will support the growth of entrepreneurial programs for students and local regional businesses. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mayor. Are there any questions for the mayor? Director of Law, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I have no report this evening.
Are there any questions for Mr. Murphy? Director of Finance, Mr. Trivy.
Now, just to be consistent, I have no report either.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Trivy?
Yes, Madam.
Mr. DeJohn.
Mr. Trivy, on the ordinance number 2018-7, there's a current appropriation of $11,250.
Right, that was for some engineering for the Oakville Park. That was budgeted and carried over.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Next on tonight's agenda are the reports of committees, commissions, and boards. Start off with the Building Committee. I have not had a meeting, so I have no report. Does anyone have any questions? Mr. DeJohn.
Not that it's a question, but, you know, I noticed on the television that we've been watching the murder case of Aliana DeFries, who was the young lady that was going to school in Cleveland that was brutally raped and murdered by Christopher Whitaker, a registered sex offender. Now, this registered sex offender was living at the Villa Serena, which is right next to St. Francis of Assisi School, and, you know, which registered sex offenders cannot be living there. I just wanted to know what the building department can do to police these type of situations, you know, as far as making sure these apartments are vetting the residents that they bring into their buildings. This is a registered sex offender that was living right next to a school.
Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. From a legal point of view, the city does have an ordinance prohibiting that, and there is a state law as well that would prohibit them from living next door to a school. We get notice when somebody who is a registered sex offender moves in within that 1,000 feet of a school or a park or a playground. As far as I know, we did not get any notice about Mr. Whitaker. Nobody knew he was there. So it's only as good as the system. He has to register, and if he doesn't register, then, you know, he's out in the wind, really. If he does register, then the sheriff gives notice to whatever the community is that he's there. And you can always check the website to see who is in the city. But if they don't register, there's not a whole lot you can do to track them down, to my knowledge.
Madam Chair.
Mayor.
It's my understanding that he wasn't living there. He was visiting. They tracked him down there. That was a old relationship he had, and they were checking all of his past relationships and happened to find him there with a girlfriend. So I'm pretty sure that was the circumstances. He wasn't living there.
Mr. DeJohn.
Well, that's not the word I got. My wife had a patient that told him that she watched television with him down in the lobby there many, many times, and that he was actually living there with a woman. So, and again, that gets back to my question of what can we do to force these apartments to vet their clients that they're bringing in there, their renters.
Any other comments? Finance and Audit, Mrs. Sabetta.
Thank you, Madam President. The Finance and Audit Committee met January 29th to discuss the city's contribution for Community Partnership on Aging. The mayor asked for the meeting because of the Council of Government met to discuss the new CPA proposal and transportation costs. The original cost sharing is based on the participating city's population. The new formula is to separately charge the cities for their senior transportation usage. The city of Mayfield Heights is the largest user. The committee moved to recommend acceptance of the CPA's new proposal for 2018. When this resolution is placed on council agenda, the city can contact the CPA Executive Director to attend the council meeting to answer questions or a possible presentation. Council should have the meeting minutes and the proposal. Also on the agenda, a discussion of review of the revenue enhancement. The mayor referred to Malaman Communications for their outreach program previously discussed by council to ensure education of a tax rate increase. An updated proposal was not available for the meeting. The committee recommended the mayor provide a new proposal and schedule another meeting. Council should have the meeting minutes and the last Malaman proposal. The next Finance and Audit Committee meeting is February 13th, tomorrow, here at City Hall. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Mrs. Sabetta. Are there any questions?
I have one.
Okay, Mr. Mano.
It says in here that if South Euclid pulls out of this CPA thing, the city of Mayfield Heights, their cost on this is going to increase substantially. What about the other cities that are involved? Are they going to share in any of that, or all of it comes on to Mayfield Heights?
Can I answer that question?
Mayor.
Well, she's the chairman of the committee. I'd like to have her answer it.
Well, she's not on the CPA either. I'm in on the board meetings, so she's not privy to that information, only what was discussed at the meeting.
That question wasn't asked.
That's not true. If South Euclid pulls out, I think maybe it was miscommunicated in the minutes. If South Euclid pulls out, there's a good chance that CPA does not remain solvent. So we would lose that partnership we have altogether. That's what was stated at the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. DeJean.
So the public hearing that was canceled that I saw on our website, was that what this was for, the public hearing?
No.
What is that?
I believe that was for a grant for transportation. We shelved
Something
that.
totally different?
Yes, exactly.
So is that gonna be brought to council soon?
The grant,
Yeah.
if we decide to go ahead with it.
Mrs. Tressi.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Mrs. Sabetta, I know that in the minutes you talked about the revenue enhancement, and you talked about increasing the tax where it would yield $5.2 million. Is that an annual amount?
Well, in the minutes, Mr. Tribby did speak of that. Yes,
So
yes it is.
it's an annual amount that we would receive. I always like going to the committee meetings, and when they're at 2 o'clock, it makes it difficult when you have gainful employment. And then we get our package on Friday night, so it makes it difficult to answer all these things before you get here. So it said that it would go into the monies, the increased taxes would go into the general fund. Will this money really be used for just the road program and for, it mentioned a pool or a park system? But if, I know employees have said they've been told that they could get 3% increase for the next 3 years for their collective bargaining. Will some of this money where we raise taxes go to paying employee salaries and benefits?
That was not stated at all. It was to be used, it was not to be earmarked so that if we did have an emergency, but no one mentioned salaries. They mentioned the road program, the park, Mayland, things that the city is working on now.
I thought it mentioned maybe operations, and so that's my concern, is if it's going to be used for, if it's in the general fund, will it get absorbed by operational expenses, being, i.e., salaries and fringes?
Well, I think Mr. Tribby should
Tribby.
answer that question.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. First of all, the 5.2 is a projection, and that's only a projection, but yeah, it would be an annual amount that we would collect. Beginning in the first full year, should it pass, we would collect that amount. And by law, it would go into the general fund, but it's not going to stay in the general fund. You, as council, would authorize transfer of most of that money into capital improvement funds, like Fund 404, which of course does the road program. The 407 is the Public Properties Improvement Fund, which was where you would spend the money, if you will, to construct a new pool or whatever you decide to do. But the money would just pass through the general fund into the capital funds. And also, like last year, for example, we transferred over $2 million out of the general fund to the road program.
Correct. Right,
Well,
that's why
you
when I
wouldn't
saw
be,
this, I
you wouldn't
wondered.
be transferring, that money would still, in effect, be part of the current revenue stream, would stay in the general fund. But almost all of the monies collected on this increase would go for capital improvements, whether it be roads, parks, pool, vehicles. When I say vehicles, not police cars, but large vehicles like a new fire truck, things like that.
Thanks, Mr. Trivy.
Madam Chair, if I could. It just, since we're talking about a revenue enhancement and a tax increase, like we did, it was about a couple years ago that we briefed almost all of council here on what it would entail and how much it would benefit the city. Most of these questions were asked and answered then, but I mean, it's the most important thing to remember here is 70% of our residents will either see a decrease or no increase in their taxes. So I just want to make sure that's out, since we're kind of, you know, we're talking about this maybe a little prematurely, but that's the most important thing everybody needs to know.
And will we hear from Malamed Communications again? Well, I know that there was a proposal, and at the, I know Mr. Balestre wasn't here at the time, but it was a 2 yeas and 5 noes for Malamed Communication last year when he came forward, when we voted on going forward with his project. Will he come again and speak to everyone? And will we be using that company?
We are asking them, the committee asked the mayor to get a new proposal from them.
From only one company, just from Malamed Communications.
Yes,
And this is the company that the mayor used, that ran his campaign, am I correct?
yes, it's disclosed in the minutes.
Yes, thank you.
Mr. DeJohn?
Is that ethical, Mr. Murphy?
To use that company?
And then hire them at the city to put on a sales campaign for a tax increase?
I'm not following. What is the question regarding ethics?
The question is the mayor used Malamed in his campaign, okay? Now he's going back and asking them to do business with the city. Is that ethical? Would that fly with the Ethics Commission?
I can't speak for the Ethics Commission, but I don't really see anything unethical about it.
Okay, well, can you get an opinion, please, from the Ethics Commission?
What would be the facts regarding the opinion? If a company is utilized by the mayor, does that preclude them from ever providing any further services to the city?
Yes.
Okay.
Especially when they were already before us last year. And now they're coming back to us again this year.
And that's a matter that council would determine?
Yes.
Okay. If council hires them, I don't really see any question as to, you know, whether or not they provided any services to an individual, be it a council member or the mayor. But I'll frame a question and run it by you to see if that's what you're asking, because I'm still not sure what the question would be as to ethics. But I'll do that.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Are there any other questions? to the Finance Chair. Legislative Committee, Mrs. Tressi.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I did begin to schedule a meeting for February 7th, and then I think Mr. Murphy did not want that meeting to take place so he could do his due diligence, more due diligence. So we did not have that meeting, and I've asked Ms. Benedetti if she would schedule it the week after next. So I don't know what, Mr. Murphy, can you tell me what else you
Yes.
what else you were looking for? We've had a couple meetings on this last May and last November, so I didn't know what else you were looking for.
Since the last meeting, Mr. DeJohn has provided some information that clarified, shall I say, what I was trying to accomplish in the ordinance. And also in doing further research, I was concerned about who would sign the necessary paperwork in order to accomplish the burial. We had some question about that in the past, and apparently there's a state statute that insulates, after a certain number of days, that insulates whoever it is from liability. So that's gone. So basically what I'm looking at is there's really no reason to have the ordinance, but I want to make sure that before I recommend to the mayor that the ordinance not be passed.
I know at our last meeting, we discussed like eliminating some of the verbiage that was in that ordinance.
And I,
So
and
now
I
you're
did
looking
that
at eliminating
substantially.
the ordinance.
Yes, yes, as being unnecessary. But I'll do a memo to the mayor with my recommendation, and then it'll be up to him to determine what he wants to do.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Murphy. And we'll, I told Elisa the last week of February, first week of March, for another meeting.
Yeah. And I don't want to be misconstrued. To decide what he wants to do, council ultimately passes it, but whether or not he wants to recommend that council pass it or defeat it or whatever, that's what I meant by what he wants to do.
Thank you.
Any further questions for Mrs. Tressi? Mr. DeJohn.
Whatever the case, Mrs. Teresi, I think we should still put before this council a resolution that says we will only pay as high as the highest bidder that I received, which was, I believe, $500 off the top of my head, I think, or $550. We should be paying no more, because there are companies out there that will do it at that expense. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Moving to Public Works and Service, Mr. Balistreo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My committee did not meet, so I have no report this week.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Balistreo? Parks and Recreation, Mr. Mano.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Taste of Italy, this Saturday, February 24th, from 6:30 to 10:30 p.m., Rusty John Community Center. Tickets are $30 each. We have a few tickets left for this popular event, which includes an open bar, appetizers, all-you-can-eat pasta dinner, and dessert table. Please make reservations in advance with the Parks and Rec Department. Healthy Mayfield 8-Week Adult Wellness Challenge, Wednesday, February the 28th through Wednesday, April 18th, from 6 o'clock to 7:30 p.m. at the Wildcat Sport and Fitness. Cost is $10. Join fitness professionals, nutritionists, registered nurses, physical therapists, and other experts as they provide education and tips for the practical application of health and wellness activities. The Healthy Mayfield Initiative is a collaborative effort between Cleveland Clinic and community partners to promote optimal health and wellness. Please make reservations in advance with the Park and Rec Department. Our next adult afternoon out will be on Tuesday, March 13th, from 12 to 2 p.m. at the DeJohn Center. Pot of Gold will feature corned beef sandwiches provided by Slyman's, potato, pickle, dessert, coffee, and water. Entertainment by No Strangers Here, sponsored by the Greens Care and Rehabilitation, and the Fountains Assisted Living. The cost is $10 per person. Reservations are a must in advance by calling the Recreation Department at 440-442-2627. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mano. Do we have any questions from anybody? Moving to safety and transportation, Mr. DeJohn.
Thank you, Madam President. The Mayfield Heights Fire Department offers and supports the following program. Free photoelectronic smoke detectors with installation. Residential lock boxes. These boxes are $30, which covers the cost of the box, and the fire department will schedule an install and put your key in the box for you. More information on these programs can be directed to Laura Baumgartner at 440-442-2626, extension 295. A few other items. Fire department received an air compressor and fill station for their breathing air. This purchase was funded through a FEMA grant. Funeral director submitted a 2018 FEMA grant for new air packs, and hopefully we get that grant. And just one incident to report on at 220 Fox Hollow on February 8th. Building gas regulator caused excessive pressure, which in turn caused four different fires. These fires were contained with the sprinkling system. Gas was shut down to the building, causing residents to displaced for the night. Dominion East Ohio was on the site all day to determine the cause. 36 of the 48 residents were returned the following day to their units. The status of the other 12 are uncertain as of Friday. Due to fires in some furnaces, these units may be delayed to be occupied. And thank our fire department for a quick response, as always. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. DeJohn. Are there any questions for Mr. DeJohn? Board of Zoning and Appeals, Mrs. Sabetta.
Thank you, Madam President. The Board of Zoning and Appeals will be meeting tomorrow night at 7 p.m. here in council chambers. Thank you.
Any questions for Mrs. Sabetta? Mr. DeJohn.
Mrs. Sabetta, do you have an agenda yet for that meeting? I looked on our website, did not see an agenda, and
Sure, it was in my package. Was it not in yours?
did anybody else get an agenda in their package?
There's 2 items.
Mr. Balestray didn't get one either.
Yeah, I didn't get one, and I went and looked on the website, but it wasn't up there either, so.
Here, you can have mine. I looked at it. Yes. Does anybody else not have one?
Mr. Balestray.
I don't see one in my packet.
All right, Planning Commission, Mr. Balestray.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. The Planning Commission met on February the 5th. We reviewed and discussed amending section 1195.01, which was the supplementary regulations prohibited uses to prohibit, cultivate, process, or sell medical marijuana, which was on the table. It was a very informative meeting. We had an expert from a gentleman from a Chicago law firm. There was a lot of information given. He gave out a packet, and the commission had a lot of questions. A lot of answers were provided, and the Planning Commission decided to chew on all the information given at the meeting. We will make a recommendation at the next Planning Commission meeting and make that recommendation to council. There's a lot of different language that was used, a lot of state statutes to go over. And you can review some of the comments and some of the questions that were in the minutes that were copied to you, but it was a very informative meeting. I personally learned a lot about the new statutes that the state is providing, and that's my report.
Thank you, Mr. Ballester. Do you have any questions? Mr. DeJong?
Mr. Ballester, are you going to have them come to the council to speak to us?
We can.
I think that may be a good idea.
They would make themselves available.
So this way the public can understand the
But
situation.
we will meet at the next planning commission. You're welcome to attend. They won't be there at that meeting, to my understanding. That'll just be for the planning commission to discuss amongst ourselves what recommendation we want to make to council. But we could ask them to be present if there's any questions. I don't know, I'll run it by the mayor and see if there's any additional expense or anything like that
We had to pay them to
to
come?
bring them. I don't think so, but I'm just saying.
I just sort of think if you're going to make a recommendation to this council, that to bring them to council, and this way the public, our residents, can have a chance to hear
I
this.
believe
too.
they're out of Chicago.
Oh,
The law firm is out of Chicago. Correct.
No, they have offices in Chicago,
offices
but
in
they're out
They're
of
downtown.
Cleveland.
Yeah. I don't know if Mr. Wager was out of Chicago himself or he was local.
Madam President.
Mayor?
Yeah, he's local.
Okay, thank you.
And if I can make one more comment, we didn't pay for it. We didn't have to pay. Yeah,
so there should
he
be no problem.
volunteered, I gotta check his schedule, make sure he can be here, that's all.
Mrs. Dressy?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I just saw the minutes where it said they're wondering to consider, if they're gonna consider it retail or a clinical operation. If it's retail, it can go in any vacant retail store we have, if we approve that, am I
You
correct?
asking me the question?
Yes, and you
Yeah.
were there, so I.
Yes, well, directed,
yeah.
you did direct it to me. But yes, it could go in they call them dispensaries.
Mm-hmm.
So the dispensary could be in a local pharmacy, or most likely, what they're thinking of having these dispensaries located in a hospital-type setting, in a medical facility. I just think either way, it's gonna be, just my personal opinion, it's be a very difficult situation to police, a very difficult situation to control. Could be wrong. This is all new to all of us, I think. They use different terminologies. You know, we don't provide for manufacturing within the city, cultivating within the city, or agricultural. But they call it cultivating is agricultural, processing is manufacturing. So, you know, if we make a recommendation to council, I think we use that terminology, that we don't, if the council so approves, that we use that terminology to put that into our ordinance as one of the uses that we don't utilize. And the same thing goes with what they call dispensaries. We kind of left that open-ended because we don't know at some point, and we just want to discuss it as a commission, if at some point down the road the hospital comes to us and says, you know, we do have these types of patients that could benefit, and we'd like to have a dispensary at the local hospital. Is that something that we leave open and leave out of our ordinance, or is that something that we just completely prohibit from the get-go? So that's one of the questions I think that we're going to raise at the planning commission, and we'll come back and make a recommendation to the council.
Thank you.
Sure,
Sorry,
go
can I
ahead.
just ask, wouldn't we need an ordinance if we wanted to prohibit retail? It being in retail, I could understand the hospital coming to us and asking about doing a dispensary, but wouldn't we have to be maybe proactive by putting an ordinance in place that said, I know we did a moratorium a couple times, but to hinder anyone from coming forward, you know, nothing is a problem till it's a problem, so wouldn't we have to consider doing an ordinance for retail?
I think that's one of the recommendations we'll come back to council with. Either we'll prohibit all three, or we'll say we'll prohibit it in a retail environment, or we'll approve it for, you know, we'll recommend that it's approved for retail and for medical, or one or the other. But I think you're just opening, you know, a can of worms if you do that. So I think if we say as a committee, as a commission, and as a council, we're not going to approve it, we're going to disallow all the uses, then we just put it all in the ordinance as one.
Thank you so much.
Mike, do you know if the other communities around here have anything that they've passed recently?
Richmond Heights, to my knowledge, has passed their council for cultivating, manufacturing, and I don't know about dispensing. The site that they chose was the old Borales on Chardon Road. So, you know, Richmond Heights has been, it has been approved through their council for use, and that was one of the questions that was raised at the Planning Commission, you know, with the proximity with Mayfield Heights, is it really necessary that we have one here? And Mr. Wager, the gentleman that was speaking, says there would be 6 locations in Cuyahoga County that would be approved by the state for medical marijuana use.
So they
So
have,
proximity has no bearing. It could be Richmond Heights, Mayfield Heights, South Euclid, whoever it's approved for it
so they have a hospital there. Do they?
as well. I don't know what all the incidentals are, why they approved it and what the ramifications were with their council, but it did pass their council.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions for Mr. Balestra?
Thank you.
Thank you. We will now move to comments from the public. Pursuant to city code, each person will be allotted 5 minutes to speak with a maximum of 30 minutes for the entire public portion. Although it is not a time for public debate, this is your opportunity to address council with your concerns. Please know that no personal attacks or comments will be allowed. Also, if you are here in connection with an agenda item, this is your opportunity to address council. If you would like to be heard this evening, please raise your hand and be recognized, and approach the podium and state your name and address for the record. It is now 7:40. Please state your name and address.
This is right. I'm George Faber. I live at 1685 Hawthorne Drive, right here at Mayfield Heights. And I have 2 things that I'd like to ask. And I asked one of these things before about the Mayland Shopping Center, especially in the back. It's so bad. It looks so dirty. I guess they turn the signs around and paint them white. You still can tell what they are from what I've been told. And it's really dark back there. You know, well, something be done about that is what I guess, but that's my question. I've really been concerned because it's been years since anything's been in there. And number 2, a few months ago, we had someone here from offered you a plan for storage units somewhere in the back behind Golden Gate, and I was just curious if that's something that you're considering. If it is something you're considering, do you think it would cheapen the city? That's all I really have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. So with the storage unit, I think he just came to propose what he'd like to bring to the city. I don't know if anything else has come our way with it. The subcommittees, I don't think they proposed anything yet. And I guess we'll look at all those things if they do propose to come to our city. And then as far as Mayland Shopping Center, I'm gonna refer to the mayor. Do you have anything?
We'll look into the, if you say it's dark back there, we'll take a look at that. I'm not sure, I guess I haven't noticed if it's been back or how the light condition is back there. We'll take a look at that, but we are working on trying to do something there.
Thank you for your questions. Is there anybody else that would like to be heard? It is 7:45. I will close the public portion. We will move to resolutions, starting with Resolution 2018-4. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Resolution number 2018-4, A resolution authorizing all actions necessary to accept Northeast Ohio Public Energy Council, NOPEC, energized community grants and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules?
Moved.
Moved by Mr. Balestreo,
Second.
by Mrs. Sabetta. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. Mano?
No.
Mr. Balestreo?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
No.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
No.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes.
3 to 3, there is no suspension.
First reading. Gotta go first reading.
Do I have a motion to place it on first reading?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Balestreo. Second by?
Second.
By Mrs. Sabetta. So resolution 2018-4 is placed on second reading, or first reading, apologize. Okay. Resolution 2018-5, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Resolution number 2018-5, a resolution confirming the intention of the City of Mayfield Heights to sell property that is unneeded, obsolete, or unfit for city purposes via internet auctions, and authorizing the use of certain representative websites to conduct the internet auctions. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules? Moved by Mrs. Sabetta. Second by Mr. Balestreo. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes.
Mr. Balestreo?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Is there a motion to approve?
Moved.
Moved by Mr. Balestreo. Second
Second.
by Mr. DeJohn. This is a resolution to allow the city, this is actually a housekeeping item that is done every year. This gives the city the opportunity to sell items online via internet. Are there any questions? Seeing none, Lisa, can I have a roll call on the motion?
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mr. Balestreo?
Yes.
This resolution has been adopted. Next on our agenda, we will move to ordinances. Ordinance 2018-5, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Ordinance number 2018-5, an ordinance amending the zone map of the City of Mayfield Heights, Ohio, so as to rezone permanent parcel numbers 863-26-008, 863-26-009, 863-27-007, 863-27-008, 863-27-009, 863-27-010, 863-27-011, 863-27-012, 863-28-007, 863-28-008, 863-28-009, 6200 Lander Haven Drive, from the current U2A1 Planned Unit Development District to U3C Senior Citizen Apartments with Life Care Facilities District in the City of Mayfield Heights. Second reading.
Is there a motion to place 2018-5 on second reading?
Moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Mano and second by Mr. DeJohn. We'll be having a public hearing on February 26th at 6:45 pertaining to this ordinance. Are there any other questions from council? Seeing none, roll call on the motion.
Mr. Balestreo?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes. Ordinance 2018-5 has been placed on second reading. Ordinance 2018-6, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Ordinance number 2018-6, an ordinance authorizing the purchase of Cuyahoga County permanent parcel number 862-24-002 from Deutsche Bank National Trust Company as trustee for Soundview Home Loan Trust 2006-WF2 asset-backed certificates series 2006-WF2 by and through its servicing agent and attorney-in-fact Wells Fargo Bank, N.A., and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules?
Move.
Moved by Mr. Balistreo.
Second.
Second by Mr. Mano. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mrs., or Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Belistria?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Mrs. Sabetta, second by Mr. Balistreo. Okay, this ordinance pertains to the city purchasing a property located on Peepers Hollow. We received detailed paperwork of the contract in our packet. Is there anything, Mr. Murphy, you would like to add to this?
Only that the purchase price is the appraised fair market value as determined by the appraiser the city hired, and this property will be necessary to move forward the city's stormwater program.
Thank you. Do we have any other further questions? Mr. DeJohn?
Mr. Teresi.
Okay.
I just wanted to make sure that when it comes to revamping that creek back there, what is the liability going to be towards the city?
Mr. Murphy?
Once we own the property?
The liability toward the city, hopefully,
Towards payment to fix the creek?
the city owns the creek, the city would be responsible for maintaining and improving, if necessary, the creek. The regional sewer district does have a stormwater management program where there are funds available which could be used if the district approved the use of those funds. But ultimately, it's the city's property. The city's responsible for stormwater in the area, and it would be the responsibility of the city. I'm not sure there's any liability as long as the stormwater is managed properly.
And what is the advantage of us owning the property then?
We have control over the creek itself. The property as it stands now, there was a retaining wall that failed and fell into the creek, so there is questions as to how well the creek will handle whatever stormwater will come through there. And we had made, back last summer, the city had declared this to be a nuisance and had ordered the property owner to clean the creek. And in the meantime, then the property was foreclosed, it was sold at sheriff's sale, it was bought by the bank, the mortgagee, and so we have been dealing with the bank in order to obtain control of the property so that we can make sure that creek transports stormwater the way that it should.
Thank you. Mrs. Tressi, did you have something?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. My question would be, when will this home come down? When will it be demolished? Since I know we talked about this, 6-8 months ago.
Yeah, I think Mr. Fernaro's sitting there waiting. I would say as soon as we take title, which right now is scheduled for, by contract, March 2nd, if that's a Friday. I think that's what actually it's in the legislation, March 2nd. So shortly thereafter, once we have title to the property, the house will come down, the retaining wall will come down, the creek will be cleared, and then I would imagine there would be a plan developed for the property itself and how it would be best utilized to manage the stormwater coming through there. there is a significant flow that comes through there from time to time and ultimately goes through the middle school over there.
And that, can I ask another question? That's really my concern, is that when you clean up that creek, there's such a flow now. When you clean up that creek, will it be an issue? As you're saying, it's our creek. Will it be an issue going into the school because it goes into Gates Mills in the back by Hamilton or, I mean, the way it flows, will it be an issue for us?
Mr.
The mayor's nodding for somebody to come up.
Well, we've talked about, I'm sorry, Madam Chair, if I could. We've talked about maybe putting a retention basin there to slow that down and working on various ways to be able to have that creek handle the flow. And one of our main concerns was the middle school, because that pipe, actually, the middle school pipe is one of the reasons that creek has problems, because it narrows down to a small pipe under the school. So
But it flows really,
it goes right under the school. That's
Right.
why you can't make the pipe bigger under
yeah,
there,
but it
unfortunately.
flows really quickly.
So, yeah, the idea is put a retention basin, slow the water down, let it, eventually just drain out into the creek slower. So that's the plan.
Thank you.
Have we notified the school to tell them this might be something we're going to be doing?
I don't believe no, we haven't talked to the school yet. They'll be happy.
Mr. DeJohn?
So again, I'll go back to my last question. How much money do you think it's gonna cost the city to fix this problem?
Go ahead.
It's not necessarily a problem right now. I think that we have, and Mr. Fernard, turn around, come
Come up
back.
here.
I need your expertise, but I think we've budgeted about $10,000 to $15,000 to tear down the house and to put the property back into a state in which the stormwater can be managed. But I'll defer to Mr. Fernaro.
Fernaro?
Correct, and Mr. Murphy answered it right. So right now, we don't have that number for you, but when we get there, we're gonna try to use cost-sharing money.
Do you,
Will you be doing the work? Will the service department be doing the work, or will that be hired out?
Probably contract out.
have
Is
you,
there a concern about service department doing that work, Mr. Dijon?
No, I just wanna
Yeah,
know,
because we could
what
save money
kind of cost that,
could
once
save
we
money
own this
for-
property and, we start fixing the creek and pulling out the retention wall that's inside it, the creek, and, what kind of liability, what kind of cost for the city is that?
I think if we're saving the city money with the service department doing work, that's not an issue, right?
No, it's not.
Okay.
No, I was just wondering, obviously, if the service department does the work, it would probably be less expensive than if we contracted it out.
Correct.
Correct. So I have no problem with the service department doing any work.
thank you, Mr. DeJohn.
Madam Chair,
Mayor?
if the service department does the work, then we can't use the cost share money. But then it would cost the city money.
And I have a question. Have you talked to Euclid Creek or anybody for any grants or anything they can help us
Yeah.
with?
That part would definitely be the Chagrin River watershed.
Chagrin.
Yes, we have to talk to them.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other, Mrs. Tressi?
Mr. Fenaro, we've talked about using that cost-sharing money for Oakville Park as well. Do we have enough to do both if we have to?
We do. We've been using that money a lot. We just have to narrow down where we want to use it.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay. Any further questions? Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Belistria?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes, this ordinance has been approved. Moving to ordinance 2018-7, Mr. Murphy?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Ordinance number 2018-7, an ordinance amending ordinance number 2017-26, temporary appropriations for current expenditures of the City of Mayfield Heights, State of Ohio, during the period of January 1, 2018 to March 31, 2018. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Balistreo, second
Second.
by Mr. DeJong. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Belistria?
Yes.
Mr. DeJong?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes. Is there a motion to approve?
Moved.
Moved by Mr. Balistreo, second by
Second.
Mr. DeJong. This ordinance is amending ordinance 2017-26. I believe that these appropriations have to be adopted to move forward with property purchase from the ordinance 2018-6. Mr. Tribby, would you like to add anything to this?
No, when we adopted the temporary appropriation, I was not aware that this was going to be coming up this soon, so we have to amend the temporary to, in effect, to buy the property. And there's unencumbered balance in Fund 407 for that.
Okay. Mrs. Tressi?
Mr. Tribby, is the $75,000 for the property we're just speaking about at Peeper Hollow?
Right, that's just an estimated amount. It'll be on the amount that's in the actual purchase agreement.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Seeing none, roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. DeJong?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes.
Mr. Belistria?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes. This motion has been approved. There are no motions this evening, so I'm going to move to new business or questions or comments from council. Would anyone like to say anything? Mr. DeJong?
Yes, thank you, Madam President. Since I won't be able to be at the finance meeting tomorrow regarding talking about the tax increase for the city, I just wanted to give you my opinion now. First of all, I'm wondering why we need to hire somebody to sell this to the voters when I think we can do this on our own. We could send out question and answer to our voters, and then we could also televise sessions in our council chambers, and save the money that it would costing us to put it out to Malamet to do this for at least $40,000, and we still don't have that estimate yet. So, just what it's my opinion, and also I'm saying that I'd like to see this money earmarked for infrastructure in the city and nothing else. Thank you. That concludes my questions and comments.
Does anyone else have any comments? Okay, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Moved.
Moved by Mr. Balistreo. Second
Second.
by Mrs. Sabetta. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This motion has been approved. Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening. We are now adjourned.